Paul,
Andy.
can you pinpoint the exact moment that you feel you became a man?
No, I can't. I can't pinpoint the exact time that I felt like I became a man because I honestly don't feel like I am a man at this point. I know it sounds funny. I know. Laugh it up. Laugh it up.
Oh, I plan
But no, I mean, when you really think about it, okay, so it's like, I don't know, I almost felt like there was this time where it's like, okay, everything that you used to be into, like you had all these childhood loves and fantasies and hobbies and stuff like that, and one of the things of becoming an adult is you have to strip that stuff away. It's gone. You don't have time for it.
Childish.
It is. It's childish.
Yeah.
So, because I still very much enjoy my hobbies, like reading comic books, playing video games,
Obviously.
doing all that stuff. Yeah, obviously. I don't necessarily feel like I've hit that peak of my life. So technically,
You have no idea.
Technically it did come out weird, but no, I don't feel like a man like right now.
I can define the exact time I became a man.
Wow, when?
It was when my doctor told me I had hypothyroidism, and then he gave me a magic pill and I hit puberty. I grew my first pube. I was like, this is it, baby. Manhood, here I come.
The beginning of the rest of my life.
It can only go up from here. Guess what? Dick stayed the same size. I was fucked. That was it. I was like, cool. Thanks for manhood. I guess that did me a lot of fucking good, didn't it? So, there you go.
Wow. All right. That's, here I thought I was giving this really philosophical, debate here. I'm like, yep. On a positive note, from when I was younger and to when I am now, yeah, my dick increased in size.
Well, that makes one of us on this couch. Hey everybody, welcome to the first Power Trip Gaming Powercast.
Ooh, it's not a podcast, it's a Powercast.
Now you're listening with power.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, fuck. So we're trying something different.
We are. So we've been doing Power Trip Gaming for several years now, and we are actually starting to now kind of dip our
big toes into other media, if you will.
Our feet, our big toe into podcasting.
That's right.
See where it goes.
Usually when we do Power Trip, we're playing a game. So conversation is hard to come by sometimes because we're busy concentrating on playing. So Paul and I never have an intelligent platform to spout our views and ideas.
And sometimes there's a lot of animosity and a lot of anger that's coming out of us, that's spewed out of us, instead of a calm, collected thought coming out of our minds because we're busy playing the game. So this is a way to kind of interact, but in a calmer, just cooler manner.
More thought out.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if you guys don't know who we are, I am Andy.
And I am Paul.
And we are Power Trip Gaming. We are playing our way through the entire NES collection.
The games that were licensed in North America.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yes.
Because there's a lot more than what we have.
There's a lot more than just the North American licensed games. But we had collected the entire collection back in April of
2014?
2014, yes.
Yep.
Thank you. 2014. And we decided that it's one thing to collect them all, but now we got to play through them all.
Exactly. So over the years, I think we've been on about 3 years.
2015.
2015, so 3 years.
Yep. January 2015.
Yeah, we've tackled 150 plus games at this point. So, I mean, we're trucking our way along. Mm-hmm. We had a couple hiccups along the way.
Couple hiccups, but we're back. We're stronger than ever, and we're still going.
Hell yeah, man. So, a little bit about us. Obviously, if you don't watch the show, I'm very into RPGs.
And my forte of games is actually survival horror. I actually am a very big fan of survival horror, dungeon crawling as well too. So some of my favorite series of all time: Silent Hill, hands down, is my favorite franchise of all time. I absolutely fell in love the first time I played Silent Hill 1. Silent Hill 2, fun fact, and I'm not ashamed to admit it, Silent Hill 2 is literally the first time I had ever played a game that had actually made me cry. I'm dead serious. The touching story, and one of the parts of the game near the very end, the voice acting was just absolutely phenomenal, and it really it evoked an emotion in me that I never thought was possible through the medium of video games until that moment. So it was just absolutely incredible.
I would say that's the moment you became a man. When you got in touch with your feelings and cried at Silent Hill 2.
Sure. We'll say that.
So, Paul and I met in high school. We've been friends for a very long time. It's 15, 16 years now.
15 years, yep.
Yeah, because
Since
just
2003, no, 2002.
I mean, it was about our junior year. We met through a mutual friend of ours who is no longer with us.
No. Well, hey, he's not, let's correct this. He's not dead. He's just dead to us.
He turned out to be a douche.
He sure did.
Yeah, so through that, Paul and I solidified our friendship. God, how many games did you have around the time we met?
Oh, God. When I met up with you guys, I must have had only like 160.
Oh
I don't think I
God.
was to 200 yet. I had between 160 and 180 games, and that was back in 2002, 2003.
Damn. Yeah, I remember you weren't super into collecting. You were collecting them, but you weren't hunting them as fervently as you ended up doing a little bit later.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, as I said, that friend fell through, and Paul and I got to know each other better. He ended up getting me a job at a cemetery nearby, so we worked at a cemetery together for a few years. That was a hell of a lot of fun.
It really was.
Yeah.
I loved working at the cemetery.
I know you were still going to college at the time.
I was.
For being a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
So that was cool.
Yep.
Too bad that didn't quite work.
No, I'm happy where I ended up.
Yeah.
Ultimately. But yeah, I mean, as far as the collecting goes, I don't even know. I can't even remember. I can't pinpoint when I decided that I was going to collect every single licensed Nintendo game. I knew that I was, at the time, GameStop was actually still selling Nintendo games, and a lot of the retro game console games like Genesis and Super Nintendo, they were still selling all of that. But I would go into GameStop and I would pick up the cheapest of the cheap games that would average anywhere between 99 cents and I think the majority were between 99 cents and $1.29, but I would sometimes get some that were $1.99 and once in a while get something that was like a $2.99 or even a $4.99 game. But there was multiple times I remember having a entire GameStop bag full of games. There was like 15 or 16 games, and I would spend less than $30 on all of it.
God damn.
And so at one point, I think I had... I just hit past the 200 mark. And then I thought to myself, well, you know what? It can't be that hard. You know what? I think I'm going to try to get every single American licensed Nintendo game that ever came out. And the only problem with that is that even at the time when I had decided that, a lot of lists that were online at that time weren't complete. They didn't have all the games. Like one list, even the definitive Nintendo PDF that has all of their games doesn't have all the games on there.
That's true.
And so then some lists would have certain games, and then other lists wouldn't, like, they wouldn't have this game, but then other lists would have these games, and it would be missing some. So through all of it, I tried to kind of put together a master list of all the games, and so I ended up doing that and found out that it came to about 678 games. And then from that point on, it just kind of powered through, and it was funny because at the time when I was collecting, games like Little Samson weren't even on the radar.
Oh God, no.
They may have been somewhat expensive, but because it wasn't one of those games that was already known to be rare or super expensive, it really flew under the radar. And so along the way, I would be collecting games, and I'd think, okay, it's like I only have this many left, and there can't be too many super expensive games, and watching games that didn't used to cost a lot, and then all of a sudden they would skyrocket in price, like Panic Restaurant and Little Samson and Dragon Fighter, and these games that all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, that game's over $100. Why is it so expensive? And but I think by that point, when I would have otherwise have kind of decided like, okay, you know what, I think I'm this far, I'm happy where I'm at. I was already at the point of no return, and I said I gotta do this.
As you said, you settled on 678 games,
Mm-hmm.
and it's funny because we get that question a lot. Actually, is what there seems to be a lot of controversy as to what games are considered officially licensed, what games are on the list, off the list. Like Flintstones Surprise at Dinosaur Peak. That one on a lot of people's lists seems to be excluded because it was a Blockbuster exclusive.
Yeah.
But it was still officially licensed. So, like, what the fuck?
Well, it's just, it is strange. It is extremely strange because certain games are excluded from certain lists and they're not from others. And, I mean, there's been a lot of different discussions about what should be counted, what shouldn't be counted. Yeah, it was actually just a couple years ago, they released a documentary called Nintendo Quest.
Yeah,
Rob McCallum had done a video called Nintendo Quest where he had challenged his best friend to try to track down and collect all of the licensed Nintendo games over the course of, like, I think it was 30 days.
I'm not quite positive.
I can't remember what the time frame was. I know that it was like it was literally like either 30 days or it was like over the course of a summer or something like that. I think it was 30 days. But they were going through their list of like what the most expensive games were, and Flintstone Surprise Dinosaur Peak was not on that list. And I thought to myself, well, why isn't Flintstone Surprise Dinosaur Peak on there? And then it came out later in like the I think in their movie that because Flintstone Surprise Dinosaur Peak was a Blockbuster exclusive, it was actually released in November of 1994. It was really like second to last game that ever came out on the system, and for some reason it was only available through Blockbuster Video, so it wasn't really available over like in stores, so they don't count that as one of the licensed and available Nintendo games.
Yep, 30 days.
30 days.
This 678 officially retail licensed Nintendo games for the NES in 30 days with no online purchases.
Yeah, but what I don't understand though is that,
well, how did he get 678 then?
Yeah, that I don't know. I would be curious as to what their list is.
Yeah.
But that being said, then it can also be argued that why is Stadium Events on the list? A lot of people consider Stadium Events as the holy grail of the licensed Nintendo games, but in that same vein, literally what the story of Stadium Events is that it was actually Bandai who had marketed and released that along with their own power pad.
Yeah.
It was the family fun fitness pad or something like that. And Nintendo really liked the idea of their power pad and how it got kids instead of like the whole argument of, oh, you're sitting playing video games, you're going to get fat and out of shape and stuff like that. So they liked the fact that there was that interaction with it so that they can actually get exercise as well too.
Yeah.
So they said, no. Bandai, no, you can't sell us because we actually have our own first party power pad that we just made, and so you have to cease and desist on this. And because Stadium Events was through Bandai, they said nope, you can't sell that either. We made our own version of this game and we don't want you to sell it on our system. We're going to sell our version. It's called World Class Track Meet. It's literally the exact same game as Stadium Events.
Right.
And so because the time that the game was on shelves, it was literally on shelves for like maybe a couple days, and they literally pulled all of the copies of the game and shipped them back to Bandai. And so literally people don't even know how many of this game still even exist because they had sent them all back and they had to be destroyed. But yet, obviously, like
Some
I would
still
say,
made it.
I would say they said that the current number of the cartridges that still exist or that are known to exist are like somewhere between 26 and 50.
Damn.
Yeah. And so to me, why would you even consider that an officially licensed game? Because it literally was on shelves for a couple days and that's it.
Yeah. Whereas Surprise at Dinosaur Peak was in multitudes of blockbusters.
Every blockbuster across the country, and it had that same seal of approval, meaning it was still officially licensed, and it was available in the United States, so it's a U.S. official game.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's so
such a gray area for what the list really is.
It is such a gray area, and for what should be included, what shouldn't be included, and so I mean. Yeah, it's just it's really up for debate, and I think people still debate it to this point, but I think they still generally side with the fact that stadium events is an officially licensed game.
Right.
Even though personally I don't think it should be, just because of the fact that it wasn't made available to everyone for a fair amount of time.
Right.
Like first off, it wasn't even made available to everybody, but it was only for a couple of days, and so therefore it was not officially available for everybody.
Well, speaking of Surprise at Dinosaur Peak, that'll lead into our next topic, is the conceiving of Power Trip Gaming. So, fast forward, after Paul and I met maybe 10 years, would you say? It was about 2013, I would say. 2013.
Yeah, it was 2013.
Paul ends up sending me a text. He says, Andy, I got a game in a lot. We're coming over, or I'm coming over, and we're beating this tonight.
It wasn't. No. You're misremembering.
Yes, I am.
I did not get it in a lot.
I thought you did.
I had bought it singly.
Oh God.
And
that makes it worse.
And I spent a lot on it. I spent a lot, and I text you. I'm like, Andy, I just bought a game. And I've got a project. We are going to be playing this game, and we're going to be beating it. I don't even care how hard it is, but I got to get my money's worth out of it. So I'm coming over tonight, and we're playing this thing.
Yeah, so sure enough, I get the knock on the door. It ends up being Flintstones Surprise at Dinosaur Peak. Do you want to tell them how much you paid for it?
No.
It was like $500.
No. No.
On a good day. Never mind.
So I decided, like an idiot, to place a bid because there was no bids on the game at the time. The opening bid for the game was $699.99.
Son of a bitch.
$700. And I thought the game at the time was going for like $750 to $800, and I was like, there's no way that this game, like, I'm not going to get it for opening bid. So it was funny because I was going through a phase actually where I was bidding on certain things knowing with the intention that I was going to be outbidded. But I'm like, it just made me feel like, yeah, you know what, I can afford that if it ends up, like, if I end up winning it, but I don't want to win it, so I'm just going to bid it up just to kind of mess with people. And so I did that with Flintstones, thinking that there's no way it's going to go for the opening bid. I know it's not going to go for the opening bid. And sure enough, I think I made the bid when there was 5 days left. 3 days left, I'm like, oh God, I still have the high bid. Well, that's okay. A lot of the action happens in the last day.
Of course, you get the snipers.
It's all gonna happen on the last day. That's fine. So day 2, I'm still a high bidder. Day 1, and less, I'm like, I'm still the high bidder. I'm like, okay, all right. Yep, things can happen on the first day or on the last day, but it's mainly that last hour. And so then I start watching it with like 2 hours left. I start watching it, and I'm like, why is nobody else bidding on this thing? I think this was even at a time when the counters were still like there was counters on the auction, so you could see how many people were like visiting your page and stuff. And I could still see the counter going up, and I'm like, why aren't people bidding on this thing? Why aren't they bidding on it? And there was like 30 minutes left, 20, 15. I'm like, why is nobody bidding on this? Like, and now it's way too, like, I can't retract my bid. Like, I can't do that. I'm stuck in this thing. And sure enough, the auction comes and it goes. It's done, and I won for the opening bid. And I'm like,
$700?
Son of a bitch.
So $700.
So $700 I paid.
Damn.
Yeah.
So in case you're wondering, this game now goes for $737.
Which I'm happy about, because at the time that I bought it, like I said, the game was going on average for about $750 to $800. Probably about a month after I had paid $700 for that game, it started decreasing in price. I think at its lowest, it was in the low 600s.
Wow.
And I'm like, holy shit, I can't believe
I
can't believe this just happened. Of all the games that I wanted to get, like, this has always been that second most expensive game. Now what the hell? Like, what is going on? And now I'm glad to see that it's actually, like, starting to go back up again.
That's funny. So he comes over, we plug it in, we're playing it, we get to the, we're struggling a little bit, but we're still doing pretty well. We get to the last level. And Paul ends up dying. And if you watch the show, you know Paul, when he gets mad, he throws things. He threw that controller on the ground, and oh boy, the game freezes. He ends up freezing the fucking system. Cool. So I was ready to throw in the towel. I said, fuck it, dude. We've been playing for like a couple hours. I'm done.
I think it was like 1 o'clock in the morning at that point.
Yeah, it was 1 in the morning. I think you would come by almost, was it after work? Because I feel like you were still dressed up. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I was.
So holy crap, it was already late. We were tired, but I was ready to give up. You were like, no, fuck that. You hit reset. You kept playing from level 1.
We're doing it. We're doing this.
I hate you.
I paid way too much for this game. We're doing this.
So lo and behold, a couple hours later, we beat the game.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. Surprise at Dinosaur Peak. You turn off the system, you look at me, and I remember the look in our eyes. We were like, you know what? This is a game we have never played before. We've never picked it up. We beat it in about 3 to 4 hours. That's not bad for a game you've never played. So what's to stop us from doing that with the rest of the collection? Like, you figure a few hours here, a few hours there. Some games are easier, some games are harder, so a lot more time. This is actually a pretty feasible idea. So from there, Power Trip Gaming kind of sprouted its wings, man. We had a couple of friends who were very good at, like, tech stuff. We had things set up, and before you knew it, boom, we were running on Little Samson.
And I do have to say that another side of it that was my inspiration for wanting to actually play through all the games is because I had heard so many stories about people who said, like, oh, they tried to get the collection, or they did get the collection, and it's like, okay, well, what did you do with it? And it's like, well, what do you mean? What did I do with it? What is there to do with it? Well, once I got it all, then I sold it or something like that, or I sold it to somebody else. It's like, you didn't play it? And I was listening to a podcast at the time. It was actually the Retro Junkies. So shouts out if they're listening to Rob Luther and Landon Long, actually, because it was on their episode where Landon had made a comment about when he was a kid. He said he wanted to collect all the Nintendo games, but then he started thinking to himself, well, once you have all the games, well, then what's there left to do? And I just remember thinking to myself after I heard that, I'm like, what do you mean? What's there left to do? You play them all.
Yeah.
Like, you don't just collect these just to, like, collect them. You don't just look at them. You don't just kind of, like, display them on a wall or something like that. No, video games are meant to be played. You got to play through them. And then that, coupled with actually finishing Flintstones Surprise at Dinosaur Peak and thinking, wait a minute, if we can pick up this game that we've never played before and beat it, kind of learn it and beat it, what's to stop us from doing that with all the games? So then it became something more than not just playing the games, but actually playing them all the way through to completion.
Yeah. To get an end screen. That was the ultimate goal.
To get an end screen to each game that has an applicable end screen. And it's more so also what I like about the idea of it is that you really find out that there are some truly good unknown gems in the Nintendo library that people don't really bring up. They don't talk about. You always got the same classic games that people are always referring to. But there are some really just some incredibly obscure gems that are just absolutely fantastic that people just don't know about.
Yeah, and they're still priced fairly low.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these games, like, Little Samson alone is $1,400 now. It's higher? It's lower. What is it now?
It's like just a shade over 1,000.
Mother.
It's been going down.
It's been taking a dip, huh?
It has. It's like 1,060, I think.
Damn.
Yeah.
I wonder why.
I think
it
it's
felt like-
because it may have hit its cap.
Maybe because it felt like at the Midwest Gaming Classic a few months ago, it was still at.
People
13 or
were still
14.
people were still trying to get 13 or 1400 from it.
Holy
but
shit.
at the same time, every convention that you go to, what game's a staple there?
Yeah, Little Samson.
It's not rare.
No.
For how rare, quote unquote, it is, and how incredibly expensive it is, you find that game a lot. Like that's like the cornerstone of a lot of people's like booths and tables.
That's funny, yeah, because I remember the convention I bought Panzer Dragoon Saga.
Mm-hmm.
I spent $400 on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had only seen the one there, that one copy. This past convention we went to, I saw at least 3 or 4. Like, all of a sudden, the ones that are rare are resurfacing.
Yeah.
And it's very strange.
It's almost like once they get to a high enough price, I think what it is that people who have the game, they have it, but they're keeping it. So it's not out there in the wild, it's not out there in the market, and they don't want to sell it, they want to keep it, they want to keep playing it. But then what ends up happening is it gets to a price point where they're just like, all right, I'd be stupid not to sell it. So then all of a sudden they start selling them, and then they start getting out in the market, and then people, of course, if they buy like a game like Panzer Dragoon Saga for $400, then, well, I just bought it for this, so of course I've got to turn around and I've got to sell it for $500.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that perpetuates the whole wheel and the whole machination of it continually going up, where now it's $500, but then somebody pays $500 for it, and they're like, I gotta get $600 for it, $650, and then it keeps on going up, and so then you start seeing more of them because, oh, well, if that game's $650, I'm gonna try to sell mine too, and now everybody's out there in the market, and it's surfacing. But that's just my theory on it.
No, that's a good point. And it's one of the other things I wanted to talk about was just how prices have changed since we've been collecting. Like Little Samson. At the Classic, it was $1,400, and now it's just shy, or just a hair above $1,000.
Well, it's funny because that's one of the things that I'm actually glad that I have the entire collection at this point now versus I'm still working to get towards it, because collecting back then was a lot more fun than it is now.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Collecting, it's not really fun anymore, because I felt like when I started collecting. When I really got into collecting, it was around 2002, 2003. And it was still relatively, like, not many people collected video games.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know what to look for. There was no price charting. There was no way to tell what certain games were going for unless you looked on eBay. And some people just didn't even know that games existed. And so it was still very much felt like an underground thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that not everybody was doing it. And then I don't even remember when it happened, when there was this resurgence for retro video games, and all of a sudden, like, everybody, like, it just became like the cool thing to do, to collect video games and to get into that stuff. And then you started seeing all the prices just skyrocket. I remember the day that I realized something was up and that things were different at this point is when Zombie Nation for the Nintendo. I bought that game. I ended up finding it at some like record store in Tennessee of all places, in a value bin of like just miscellaneous odds and ends stuff. It was a mishmash of stuff. There was only 2 Nintendo carts in that bin. It was the Super Mario Bros. Duck Hunt dual cart, and it was Zombie Nation, and it was literally $2.99. Now, at the time, I was really super happy because that was like a $30, $40 game. And I'm like, I can't believe this is in here. That's really cool.
And this was when?
That was, 2009? No, 2008. 2008.
So 10 years ago.
Yeah, it was 10 years ago. And it was like a $30, $40 game then. And it's a very rare, hard to find game.
Yeah. It's definitely not one we've come across a lot.
No, definitely not. And so I ended up picking it up. And so a couple years later, I started looking up just kind of prices of games on eBay. And all of a sudden I saw Zombie Nation. I don't know why I decided to look up Zombie Nation, but I did. And I'm like, the game was going for $150 to $160, and I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, why? What happened?
Mhm.
It was 40 for the longest time. Now it's 160. What happened? I don't get it. And that was when I realized, I'm like, collecting is not, it's not as fun as it used to be. Like, I felt like I was this kind of this I don't know, I felt like I was this person kind of like doing something that nobody else did. That everybody else was just kind of like, they were off collecting other stuff or doing whatever they want, and it's like, this is my tiny world. I'm safe in here. I'm doing something that nobody else wants to do, and I'm really enjoying it. And then that was the point that I was like, everybody else is doing it now, and it's not fun. It's too mainstream. Now the prices are starting to go up, and it just wasn't fun because of what you were battling against.
Yeah. Nowadays, by the way, Zombie Nation's $270.
And I don't know why.
Loose.
I mean, the game.
Just cart.
I mean, the game itself is
stupid.
It is hard to find. I will say that it is a rare game.
Yes, it is.
I think it was developed by Meldak or something like that, or it was published by Meldak, who did not publish that many games, and so therefore, being a small company, obviously they couldn't pump out all of those. Like, they couldn't pump out many of those games.
Yeah.
And so there's probably not many that exist, but the game itself is not that great.
No, it's very weird.
It's weird. It is just, I don't know. You are a
disembodied
head that is floating around trying to rescue people, but yet you're shooting at buildings.
It's such a
for
weird,
some reason. Like,
yeah.
I don't get it.
It's a very odd shooter.
And it's one of those games that I just don't understand why that one in particular just skyrocketed to that point.
I have no idea.
And so it's just, I remember on eBay, yes, because I did buy games back in the day. Like, yeah, I didn't do it, quote unquote, the official way. But honestly, I remember I have such good memories that it still felt like the hunt by getting these games on eBay too. But I remember staying up until like 2 o'clock in the morning because there was an auction that was ending for a complete copy of Die Hard. And I knew that because it was ending at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning, that obviously there wasn't going to be many snipers because they're not going to be up at that time. They're sleeping. And so I ended up winning that game, believe it or not, for its starting bid of $1.99.
Get out of here.
Complete copy of Die Hard with the box and the instruction booklet. I had gotten that. And what's ironic, too, is that I also won a copy of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and that was just the box in the game. That wasn't even the instruction booklet. Paid $2.25 for that one. So I even paid more for that than I did for Die Hard.
Die Hard complete, by the way, $207.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another time, like, I had gotten Mighty Final Fight. I bought that game for $5 on eBay. I got it for its opening bid. And so it's like, I felt like even online,
you were still
still like, it was still like, I was still a stranger. Like, people didn't know like what was out there, and
it felt like a virtual rummage sale.
It really did.
People were selling things that they weren't aware of what it was actually worth or what it was going to be worth.
But see, yeah, exactly. That's more of the thing. It's like, I don't want to feel like, well, I know that this game is really expensive, or I was taking advantage of people. I wasn't. Mighty Final Fight was not an expensive game at the time. And then all of a sudden, it just completely erupted.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think a large chunk of that is... as much as I was so happy when it first came to be, I think that price charting really completely destroyed the hobby.
Think so?
Is because now that people can all of a sudden just kind of pop onto their app and see like what a game is worth, all of a sudden it's like the whole idea of finding that diamond in the rough it's
out
done.
The window.
It's done now.
Because now that information is at everybody's fingertips. And I believe we
exactly.
talked about this in one of the videos. It might have been at the Midwest Gaming Classic video. I'm not quite positive.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, now you can't really haggle too much, even at conventions, because they know for a fact somebody's going to buy it at what they're asking.
Yep, there's a set price. If a game is $25, yeah, sure, maybe I'll give you, like, I'm asking $40, but I'll give you $5 off of that, but I know that this game doesn't go for less than $25, so that's what I'm gonna
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to make a little bit extra off of it.
Yeah. At the end of every one of our games, we do a "Is it worth it?" segment. So we name off the price, and we use pricecharting.com.
Yeah.
Because really, that's one of the very few ways that you can get sort of an accurate assessment on what your games are worth.
Yeah, because even sites like eBay, sometimes the prices are so
They're so weird,
so random and so volatile, where a game may go for $5 and then the same auction or like a different auction for the same game like a couple days later will go for $30.
Yeah.
And there's no rhyme or reason for it. It's just, I guess, when it was put on there and how many people ended up seeing it.
Yeah. So if anyone doesn't know how price charting actually determines a value, is they take...
It's an algorithm of
You're better at this than I am.
What they do is they scour through algorithms, Amazon, eBay, and some other price market. Some other online price market, and it'll take all of the prices that the games had ended at or what they were sold at, and then it'll take all of those numbers and put it into an average, and that's what it will display as its average. Both the complete, the loose with cartridge only, or if it's still sealed.
Yeah. Well, on there it just says price charting, eBay, and Amazon.
And it was very funny because one of the games that I had bought, and it was when price charting was so new that this is actually very funny. Of course, I don't have any proof other than when it actually happened, but when I had bought Wayne's World, it was actually on price charting. It was like $120 game, 110, some arbitrary number. I mean, but it was over $100. I ended up getting my copy of it for $96 on eBay. So I paid around the realm, but because there hadn't been that many auctions for the game or that many sales of the game since then, for the next, it was either 2 weeks to a month, the price on price charting, it was trending at $96. It was trending at what I had paid for it, and so I actually caused that trend on price charting because there was so few copies of it sold, and it couldn't establish a new base price. It's since then I think it's actually higher than $96, but that's how new it was back then. Was that price charting was still kind of developing itself.
I mean, to be fair, who the hell wanted Wayne's World?
No, yeah.
I mean, wasn't it radical? Jesus
It
Christ.
was. Only the diehard collectors wanted that one. Yeah.
Nobody played it for nostalgia's sake.
No, they did not.
God.
No. It was shit.
Yeah. Well, now that we have the entire collection and we're playing through it, what are you collecting now? I know we talked about it a bit in the Midwest Gaming Classic video.
I don't want to say for fear that we'll have more than 10 people listening to this, but because I don't want to give away the secret. But I'm actually right now I've moved on to Game Boy games, the original Game Boy gray carts.
Yeah.
Just because I love the Game Boy games because as an adult I don't have as much time to game as I would like to, but I feel like when I play a new game, like a PlayStation 3 game or something like that, something newer, like, it is an investment. It takes a long time to actually play through an entire game. Like, some games could go 10 hours, 15, 20 hours even.
Yeah.
And it's like, so if you only can dedicate 2 hours to it, you don't feel like you really even scratched the surface of it. But with a Game Boy game, literally most of the games, if you are playing for 2 hours, you have either beaten the game or you're at least halfway through it or 3/4 of the way through the game.
That's true.
And so it's like you actually feel like you had something to show for the time that you invested into it. And what I also like about Game Boy games is that it almost still feels like the secret is still kind of like
it's an untapped market.
It's an untapped market. And I say that as if I even sell my game. I don't sell my games, but it's like I still feel like there's a little bit of that nostalgia for how collecting used to be by going after the Game Boy games.
Yeah.
Because people just aren't as into them as other stuff.
Yeah. So there's a few people on the we follow the Two Dudes in an NES podcast. Shout out to you guys if you listen.
Listen to Two Dudes and an S.
Oh, absolutely, they're great. We've been on there a couple times,
Yes,
and
we have.
where you have plans to be on there again at some point.
Very, very soon, hopefully.
But there are a couple of people on their Facebook page who are collecting the entire NES collection. I would love to talk to them sometime and just get their impressions on what the market's like, as opposed to like what we dealt with. You know, we went to the Game Crazies, the GameStops, the Pre-Playeds in Wisconsin and stuff, where it's like you said, Game Crazy at one point was doing. No matter what the NES game was, it was about $3.99 or $5.
No. That was pre-played.
That was pre-played.
Yeah, Game Crazy. I mean, a lot of their games back
when
when
free for 10.
They did, but that was when they actually started phasing out their retro games.
Oh, okay.
But I would say when they were first when they first kind of came to be with their Nintendo games, for the longest time, the most expensive game that I had seen, like Nintendo wise, was about $12.99. And at the time, that was actually like one of the more expensive games that I had ever bought, and it was like Bomberman 2. I remember buying there.
Yeah.
And that was $12.99, and I had no problem doing that. But yeah, the Game Crazies, like Game Crazy doesn't exist anymore.
No.
GameStop doesn't sell video games, or it doesn't sell the retro video games anymore.
Yeah, that's weird. That didn't last long, did it?
Well,
or is it just not the ones around us?
Not the ones around us.
That's so weird.
So they still online, they'll still sell the retro games, but I meant like GameStop doesn't sell retro games like back they used to. So now literally the only place that you have to go are either flea markets, rummage sales, or the internet, eBay, Amazon,
mom and pop stores.
Yeah, mom and pop stores if they do exist. And at this point, it has been so picked over that a lot of those mom and pop stores that you go to, they've got sports games. They've got the Mario Duck Hunt dual cart. They've got a lot of these. They've got a lot of these games that are just are very common games because that's all that's out there.
Yeah.
And so I wonder what some of these collectors are going through, where if they're trying to get it. So I know that there's a couple who are part of that group, and they're like in the 610s.
Yeah.
Like one person, I think they have like 611 games, and I'm like, well, now it's getting to the point to where not all of those games that you're missing, like they're not like cheap.
They're going to be top dollar.
Some are going to be expensive, and some of them are going to be top dollar. Like
Little Samson's Panic Restaurant.
Do you feel like you still want to commit to this when you're going to have to shell out probably 4 figures for a little Samson? Like, I mean, that's just. Are you prepared, or do you want to, or is there going to come a point where it's just like, I've gotten as many as I could feasibly get. That's where I'm stopping.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
That's why I feel like you and I did it at like the perfect time.
It was the sweet spot. It really was the sweet spot of collecting when we did it.
Yeah. I mean, you ended it right about the time this started to really hit that upward trend. Mm-hmm. That's why this collection to me is amazing. Like, this is honestly the culmination of our friendship. Is the fucking NES collection.
I know.
Doing Power Trip.
Yeah, if we didn't have this, we'd have nothing.
We got nothing, man.
Yeah.
Nothing else in common. So from there, we'll move on to our final segment, man. What it means to be a man in today's world.
Why don't you tell me what it means to be a man in today's world?
I mean, really, can you even define it? Because there's... especially in today's society, being so politically correct, and I mean, for rightfully so. I mean, it's hard to really define what it means to be a quote-unquote man, other than I have a ball sack. Like, because women do everything men can do, for the most part. I mean, it's just a fact of nature. They can be breadwinners. They can take care of themselves. They don't need us. I mean, and back in the day, that used to be the thing. You were a man if you took care of your family, if you took care of your wife, took care of your kids. Like, that was what it meant to be a man. Can you really even define what it means to be a man anymore?
No, but I almost feel like it's a double-edged sword, because if you try to define what it means to be a man, then you're going to be accused of being like either a bigot or a sexist or something of that nature. I feel like we are in such a politically correct climate that some people are even afraid to say what they want to say for fear that they're going to just be outcasted.
Yeah, become outliers for their what it is.
And it's funny because actually Henry Cavill is an actor. He plays Superman in the DC movies and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. And you're probably aware of the whole Me Too movement, right?
Yes.
Like the hashtag Me Too.
Yeah.
He had been interviewed. I want to say it was for GQ magazine, or it was some publication that he was interviewed for, and he had basically said, and I'm not sure if he had said it in kind of an offensive way or if it was just poor wording, but basically I knew what the crux of what he was saying is that in today's day and age, he says that he's scared to get into a relationship because he is afraid of what he may accidentally or unintentionally do that could cause somebody to do something. Well, the whole, like, everyone, the internet just completely exploded and went off on him because they were basically saying, well, don't act like an asshole and nothing will happen. We're sorry that you feel like you can't date, that you feel inferior, or that something's going to happen, but
Easier said than done.
Well, then maybe don't be like don't assault a woman or don't push her to do something she doesn't want to do. Why would you wouldn't have an issue if you didn't do that. So are we supposed to feel sorry for you? And it's like, I completely understand where he was coming from. Mm-hmm. And they completely took what he said
and
completely twisted it around, because it just, like, I feel like that's the kind of environment we are in. And so if you even try to define what a man is or what makes a man, you're just kind of, you're opening up a whole can of worms that is just going to be completely and utterly just destroyed.
Oh, yeah. Especially, too, if you look at the way men are portrayed in, like, media or, like, on TV commercials, TV in general. I mean, I think I mentioned these before. If you watch certain commercials for, like, cleaning things, you know, the wife comes home, she's happy, and then the husband's sitting there dirty as hell. He's chopping a fish head off on the kitchen table.
Scaling a fish right on, like, all over. It's going everywhere.
Yeah, like a brute.
And he's just smiling at her like, oh, hey.
I caught dinner.
Yeah, I caught dinner.
And it's like, and that's not the only one.
Yeah.
Like, there are a lot of commercials and even TV shows where the man is portrayed as kind of a fucking caveman idiot. Mm-hmm. And the wife is the voice of reason. It's like, all right, like, to a point I understand it, because there needs to be a dynamic in a show. It makes sense. But, like, people almost start to view men in that light. All men are all we think about is having sex. All we think about is, like, all men are under this certain mentality that we're sex-driven animals. Like, we're not. I would say 90% of men aren't. And I understand most women do not agree with that. Like, they know that most men aren't that way. Mm-hmm. But there's always that group that says, no, you guys are all douchebags.
That's exactly what it is. Yep.
Yeah. So it's like, that's why I say it's hard to define the role of a man anymore.
Well, and it's funny because actually, I've talked with people who basically, and especially like females who say chivalry is dead. Like, there's no chivalry, there's no gentleman anymore. And you at one point had brought up a good point, saying that chivalry may be dead, but at the same time, it almost feels like women kind of destroyed that, because they don't want to have these special privileges. They want to be treated just like everybody else. Mm-hmm. But then they complain that like, well, why don't you, like,
hold the
door open for me, or be a gentleman, or like open my car door when I'm getting in, or doing whatever it is. It's like, wait, you want to be treated the same so that there's no sexism going on, but then chivalry's dead. It's like, well, what am I doing the chivalry for?
What do you want me to do?
Yeah, what am I doing it for then? If like, your arm's not broken, then you can just open the door then yourself, like, or
yeah, but then you're considered an asshole.
But then you might be you're not a gentleman if you don't open the door. So it's like, where do you win? Where's the common ground there?
Yeah, it's almost like a lose-lose.
Yeah.
You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. So it's I almost wonder if we're kind of products of our era, where because we grew up in that mode of thinking that you're supposed to treat women as a gentleman, which, you know, it almost seems like there's a notion that if you treat a woman, you know, as a gentleman, like if you're a gentleman, you treat them as a woman, mm-hmm. that you're somehow demeaning them. if that makes sense. Like, you're almost treating them as if they're inferior.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not.
That's not what you're doing. You're doing it out of the kindness of your heart.
Respect.
Out of respect, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a slippery slope, man. We won't get too into it, because this could go on for a while, and we could get very divisive over this.
Yes, we could.
I mean, who knows? We live in a very strange time.
It is, and I feel like the guard is changing, and we are kind of in a crossroads, and like we were born and bred in one time, but we're now kind of products in a different time, and it's just not lining up with us.
No, technology I think is a huge factor in it too. Yeah, just the fact that I mean, back in the day, you could say something, and the only people who were affected were the people around you.
Oh yeah. Like, media plays a large part in that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, granted, there's a lot of fucking idiots out there.
Social media, not the media.
Right,
Social media, yeah.
Yeah, that should be noted. Well, in the media too, I guess.
Well, yeah, but I mean, with Facebook, with Twitter, with Instagram, everything you say, like nothing. That actually just happened with. Do you know who James Gunn is? Mm-mm. He was the director. He wrote and directed the Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And he was busy. I think he had just finished a draft of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and there were some tweets that he had made 10 years ago that he was, I guess, joking about rape and pedophilia. Mm-hmm. And he said that he basically came out and said, like, that was me at a different time when I thought that I was pushing boundaries by making jokes about inappropriate things. And 10 years later, I know that I don't know why I did that. It wasn't funny then, and I regret doing it then, but I wanted to feel like I was progressive. And so those tweets came out 10 years later. It took people 10 years to find those tweets, but they ended up finding him.
Now he's demonized.
And, well, he is, but he was also fired by Disney.
Really?
They removed him and said, you are no longer associated with Guardians of the Galaxy. We do not condone nor or agree with any of what you had said, and we're parting ways with you.
Right.
So basically, he has been stripped of the directorial duties of Guardians of the Galaxy. Now there's even question that because he had finished his draft of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, they don't know if they're going to keep it or not. Or if they do, are they just going to have it ghost written by somebody else so that they don't have to associate it with his name to being attached with it?
Which is weird, because it's like that one guy who did the Ender's Game. He's...
Oh, Orson Scott Card.
Yeah. He is very against gay stuff.
He is, yes.
Like gay rights and things. It's
he does not like that.
But he does make some great stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's like that one thing, do you separate the artist from the art? Mm-hmm. Bill Cosby's... The Cosby Show was still good.
Yeah.
Just because he was a total fucking dick doesn't take away from the good things he created. Yeah, this is true. Weirdly off topic.
It is, but that's... Yeah.
But yeah, so we digress. Men.
Well, that's where we are in today's day and age.
Yeah.
Is just the climate, the political correctness of having to say things that are right may not necessarily be what you believe, but you have to be careful what you say because of how it could be viewed from other people. And
that's why I said too about the product of our generation. Like, he got yelled at for making rape jokes or whatever. Mm-hmm. Actually, I was just watching 30 Rock this morning before you stopped by for recording and stuff, and they made a rape joke. This was 10 years ago. 30 Rock was 2008, 2009, and forward. So it's like, they made a joke about it. But yeah, 10 years later, it's not a great thing.
Yeah.
Just like the whole saying, oh, that's so gay. Like that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That was our generation.
It was accepted to use that as like, oh, that's stupid.
Just like the F word I'm not going to say.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, that's, yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one. Mm-hmm. That, I would say, and that one just, you knew something was not right about that word, even growing up saying it.
Yeah.
Because it just felt wrong.
Yeah.
But, anyway, actually, I'll circle around to answer your question, or to answer my question from the beginning of the show. I can pinpoint the exact time I became a man. So, in 2013, when we were conceiving Power Trip, My then fiance got extremely sick. She had always been sickly the whole time I've been with her, but she was okay. But long story short, she became extremely sick. She was in the hospital all of 2013. To the point where, like, she was in rehab centers and hospitals, in and out of hospitals. She was only home for a month or two. Where one of the conditions of her coming home was I had to learn how to take care of her because she couldn't take care of herself anymore. She had a trach in her throat, so I had to learn how to control her ventilator, and clean it, and do all these nurse things to take care of her. Well, unfortunately, she did end up passing on New Year's Day, 2014. I want to say, in the eyes of myself, and I would say even my family and her family, sticking with her throughout all of 2013 was the time I became a man. Because I stuck by her. Because even the doctors and stuff were telling me, they said, we've seen couples who have been together for 30 years. You know, these old people in their 60s and 70s just can't deal with having to take care of their now disabled spouse. Mm-hmm. And they said, you know, because this happened when I was around 26, 27 years old. You know, most people our age at that time were still partying. They're still in college mode. Mm-hmm. You know, that kind of stuff wasn't ever in their thoughts. You know, most people New Year's Day, I would say, they're sleeping off hangovers from New Year's Eve. You know, and I'm signing paperwork to take her off of life support. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's like, I want to say that was the time I became a man. Yeah. Was the fact that I stuck by the side of the person I loved, who, for all intents and purposes, needed somebody to be with her. Mm-hmm. So there's my answer.
Wow. Yeah, I don't have that kind of situation going on.
That got kind of heavy.
Yeah. So, wow, now I definitely feel like I'm still a kid. I am not an adult. I'm not a man.
Who's got the biggest dick in the room now, bitch? Metaphorical wiener, of course.
Of course, but you are a dick.
Oh, yeah. But anyway, that'll do it for our pilot episode, I guess.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weird tangents.
There's a lot of tangents.
Yeah, hopefully it wasn't too dry. We talked about a lot of strange things, but yeah, it was very informative, I feel.
Yeah. So we hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, let us know what you think. You can hit us up on Facebook.
You can hit us up on Twitter.
You can go to you can check out our videos on YouTube at powertripgaming.tv. Take you right to our channel so that you could check out all of the videos that we've done. We've done a plethora of Nintendo playthroughs. We even do side quest material where it's games other than the Nintendo. We do reviews. We have also done hunts. Basically, we've gone on the hunt for video games as well too, and we've gone to the Midwest Gaming Classic many years, and have some videos of that as well too. So check them all out.
Absolutely.
But yeah, let us know what you think. If you have anything that you want us to cover as part of a conversation to get to know us, anything you want us to talk about, let us know, and we'll cover it.
Absolutely. It's Power Trip Gaming Podcast. Now you're listening with power.
Power Trip Gaming Powercast.
Powercast. I fucked it up.
Powercast!
And I was the one who came up with it!
Exactly!
I'm such a douche.
You are a douche.
Fuck!
Guess you're not a man after all.
I'm a dummy.
Power Trip Gaming Powercast. Now you're listening with power.
Nice job flubbing the catchphrase.
I was gonna say, now you're playing with power. But you're not really playing, are you?
That's trademarked, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably, yeah. Now you're listening with power. And that's not trademarked.
Because I do think the Nintendo Power thing is now a podcast. I think that they brought that back.
Oh, Nintendo Power? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
They might be saying you're listening with power, so I might have to double check that.
Oh, dear. Yeah, probably.
I'll double check and edit it out if it is.